we are on the, right on the threshold of the conference that's called the Society for Industrial Organizational Psychology, the conference that happens next week that many of you will be attending. And so what you are about to enter into, if you have never seen this group gather together, and for many people that don't even know that this little, I almost call it, they're like the secret agents of corporate America, because they're people that are actually creating these systems and no one knows that they exist. They're all going to get together, thousands of them are going to get together and to talk about the research and the practice that is shaping what organizational life is going to look like for you and what it's going to look like for me. And so when you get there, here's what's interesting to me, because if you imagine that, if you agree with me, to the extent that you do, that those things would be powerful in shaping the experience of an employee, of a leader, of even a customer or someone who the organization serves. If you agree with me that that's important, the next question is, are there certain values behind our guild that are either explicit or implicit that are driving our work? And so let me give you one example. This is something, for those of you that are going to get a chance to be there, I'd love for you to look for and take a look at. Think about leadership. When you think about leaders is actually a neutral term. We think of leadership as something that's positive, but if you look around our world, it's immediately apparent that leadership is not always a positive thing. People are following leaders that most of us in this room would say, we wish that they would not follow them. And it begs a question for what is it that people follow? What kind of person do they follow? And as some of you have heard me say before, I describe leaders as people who go first. We knew this when we were children, when we played Follow the Leader, that we knew the game. The game had one fundamental rule, and it was the leader goes first, and then people follow the leader. There's another part of leadership that I would attach to that's an important value of mine, is that I want to follow a leader who is not just going to go first, because any schmuck on the street can go first. But I want a leader who's actually going to pay attention to the needs of the people around them and be aware of what's going on in those people and is willing to step into the difficult questions that rise up when you enter into that part of the conversation. It's much easier to just go, I'm going to go and let's charge. It's another thing to do that and at the same time be willing to say, and how are you all feeling about this? To check in. And so what I would suggest is that there is one thing in our guild, and you've heard me say this, not only do I think that the industrial organizational psychology is a powerful guild, but I also think it's a guild that's responsible for a lot because of that power. And sometimes what you will see in our field is you will see a focus on leadership without a question that follows, that asks us this: for the sake of what are we developing leaders? For the sake of what are we trying to motivate people to perform a certain way? And this is something that I think I feel this as a weight on my own shoulders, and I would hope that other practitioners and scientists and researchers in our field would think about as well, to think about not only the fact that we're developing leaders who have competence, because you can develop competence to go first, and those leaders can do very, very bad things in our world. But what does it mean to look deeper into the character of a leader and examine who that person is? And this is the other place where we get a little bit lost. When we start to talk about character, just like leadership or leader, is a neutral term. We talk about character with the assumption that it's a good thing. We all have character. We all have our humanity. And we use different words when we talk about we want someone of the highest character. What are we talking about? What are we talking about when we think about the kind of person that we would want to follow? I was sitting on an airplane and I talked to this former executive. He had been 20 years in the military, and they'd been 20 years he had worked in corporate America. And I asked him if he could be my muse, because I told him I was writing another article on what it means to develop a leader from a holistic perspective. And so I asked him, I said, would you be willing to be my muse for a moment? And he was happy to do so because he wanted to talk about this. And I asked him what he heard when I started to describe what it means to think about developing a leader in a holistic way, to take a look at the person, to take a look at their character and not just their competency, and to look deeply into that. And he said this, he started to talk about leaders that he had followed. That's where his brain went. And he started to talk about this one person that he had reported to who had absolutely no ability to stay in touch with the motivations and the needs of her people, is what he described. Then he went on to describe another leader that he had followed, someone that he had reported to, who he described it this way, which was interesting. He said, the problem with this guy is that he wanted the job so bad, and that's all he wanted. And it was fascinating because he said, it's like the guy, this is what he said, it's like the guy had no reluctance to lead whatsoever. Now, of course, those of you guys that know me would know that I actually wrote a chapter in my book titled Reluctance to Lead. So I brought out my book, and I read him a piece from that particular chapter. And this is what I read to him. I said, if your leadership is about you and your survival, you probably don't understand the concept of reluctance as a strength. The reality is that leaders who make their leadership about them or those close to them and miss the opportunity to serve others don't understand the cost because they have focused their attention on reducing the costs. Leading well is hard work, and a realistic leader will express a true reluctance to lead along with a message that says, I know it will be tough, but I am supposed to lead. When I wrote that chapter, I had a great conversation with him on the plane about that, because he was like, I love those ideas, and we went down that path. But when I wrote that chapter, I actually got a lot of criticism for that, for the idea that reluctance is a competence that we should put on the table when we think about selecting leaders. Don't we want people who are so aware of the stakes in taking on the burden and the mantle of leading? They're so aware of that they have a healthy reluctance that says, do I really want to lead? And is that what we're rewarding? Are we selecting and rewarding people who bring a healthy sense of an awareness of those stakes and a reluctance? And I'm not saying that they don't have the courage to go forward, but they understand what's at stake, even for themselves or for others. And so what I want to challenge you to look at when you go to SIOP, those of you that will be there, is I want to challenge you to take a look one step below the research and the practices and the processes that you will see. That research and the practices and the processes that are shaping the cultures of corporate America. You're going to see some of the most powerful companies in the world represented there, and people, amazing people in our field. But I beg us to continue to ask the question, not only about developing a leader, but thinking deeply about what it means to develop a leader who is aware of the costs, who is balancing the tension between their own ego and the needs of others. We all have an ego, and we all have this tension to stay in touch with the needs of others. To think about, when you go to any session on motivation, to think about what is the underlying assumption about what we believe about human beings. Are we trying to move them all like lemmings off of a cliff toward whatever goal that we want? Or are we thinking about these people as beloved human beings, as souls who matter? The stakes are high. And that I feel this heavy on my own shoulders because I look around our world. It doesn't take a rocket scientist or an IO psychologist to look around the world and say, we have leaders out there who are doing very, very naughty things in our world. Very destructive things right now. And this is a problem that we will never completely solve. We cannot fully eradicate evil in our world. We can't fully eradicate that from ourselves because we continue to make mistakes, but we still must charge on. And if we're going to occupy the role of the IO psychologist, the professional inside the business who has the power to change those things, then I believe that we have a responsibility to be aware of that power and to think deeply about the kind of people that we're investing in and the fact that they are people. Because that's why we got started into this field in the first place for most of us. So I look forward to hearing about your experience there when you're there. Tell me what you just heard. Now I'm out of that light, so Alex is going to cut all this part out. That was not for the tape, you know that.
Oh, yeah.
Some of you that have not been there before, I really want you to be challenged to think more deeply about what you're going to see. And I love our guild. I truly do. You know my heart. I couldn't imagine a better place to be than in what you're studying. but I feel it when I'm there. In some cases, we are missing it. You will see where we are rewarding people and we're not thinking about why. We're not thinking about their value as human beings. And so just balance that out. I want us to hold on to that. Dr. Yost and I were talking about this today, that, that we have this light that we bring into the organizations, but there's also this temptation that darkness will not understand. That when you bring who you are, and the whole reason why we brought you into this program, when you bring that into the cultures where you will work, and the culture of our guild, there are places where you will be misunderstood for representing any little piece of what I described. But I think and I get excited because I say, I don't know you guys, maybe I'm wrong, but I just can't imagine a more powerful group that we're a part of, that no one knows exists.